Hi, I'm Matt. This is my brother Johnny. And this is Luca. And these are Luca's toys.
So we thought it was about time that we made somewhere for them all to go. But we did want to make sure there was one thing left for him to play with when all his toys were put away.
So we added a secret compartment to hide a busy board. Here's how we made it.
The first part of the build was to make the legs. These needed to be nice and chunky as it was going to be quite a heavy toy box, so they'd have to support a fair amount of weight.
We went for pine for the legs just to keep the cost down, plus we had loads on hand. We laminated 3 boards together just to get the thickness that we wanted, and then used the thickness planer to tidy them up.
We wanted to make sure these were really nice and strong joints, so we decided to go with rebates. Each leg got 2 rebates, and we cut these by taking multiple passes through the table saw.
Once we got the rebate thickness to match the plywood we were going to use for the sides, we then cleaned up the bottom face of each rebate with a chisel. We then used our disc sander to add a small 45-degree chamfer to the bottom of each leg. This is something we like to do to pieces of furniture as it stops the wood chipping out as it's moved across the floor.
Now we're finished with the bottom of the legs, it's time to work on the tops. To make sure the top of the rebates weren't visible when opening the lid of the toy box, we made some square pine caps to cover these up. We used wood glue and brads to attach these and left them overnight to make sure we had a nice tight join. Once done, we went on to give the legs a final sand and chamfered all of the edges.
Since the last time we did a plywood project, Johnny ditched me and went off on holiday, I figured it was his turn to unload the truck all by himself.
Cheers, mate.
We had the nice people at the timber yard cut the plywood to size, so all we had to do was cut it to final length using our crosscut sled. We made this toy box roughly 1 metre long by 1/2 metre deep and 1/2 metre tall, but you could really easily adapt these dimensions to suit any size space you have once you've cut all the joinery in the legs.
We removed the corners of the plywood to allow for the top caps of each leg. And then we went on to cut finger reliefs in the front and side facing panels. We marked these out and used an old WD-40 cap to round the corners. We then cut these out with a jigsaw and used a belt sander and a sanding drum drill attachment to smooth the curve out.
We wanted to make sure that there are no sharp corners anywhere, so we spent a little bit of time smoothing everything off with a round over bit in our router. We also did the same thing to the tops of the legs, just making sure to leave the areas where the side panels comes up to meet them. We then had to go back and plug the bottoms of the rebates used for the front panel. You'll see why this is important later on.
After that, it was time to edge band the lid. For this, we ripped down some thin strips of pine, hand cut some miter joints and attached these to the plywood using glue and tape to hold it in place. Once it was dry, we went back and rounded over both the corners and the edges using our disc sander and router.
We used our new jig to add pocket holes to the inside front panel, and once we glued up the back and sides of the toy box, we screwed this one in place. Now the reason for having 2 panels is so that the outside panel can be reversible, with all of the busyboard bits on one side. The inside panel is there to make sure that the toys don't fall out when flipping the busyboard around.
It was then time to install the bottom of the toy box. We attached some pine rails to the inside face of the front and back panel and made sure to pre-drill and countersink the holes to stop the wood splitting. We then cut some 18mm MDF down to size, cut out the corners to allow for the legs, and then attach this to the rails using wood glue.
After getting completely covered in sawdust from routing a recess for the hinge, we pre-drilled and installed it along the underside of the lid and then onto the back of the toy box. We also brought in these gas springs as another safety measure which will create a soft close effect and stop little fingers from getting trapped.
And after a final bit of sanding, we added 2 coats of primer and 3 coats of paint. We then enlisted the help of Matt's wife to add some artistic flair. We chose a cute little quote to be painted onto the front panel, which will be on show when Luca goes to bed and the busy board is hidden away.
We'd been collecting bits and pieces for the busy board for a couple of weeks, so we had lots of stuff to choose from. Here's a quick tip if you ever have to install these threaded eyelets. Chuck up a hook or something similar in your drill and use that to twist it into place instead of having to worry about a screwdriver or just your fingers.
And here it is in place. This one was a really fun build and it serves its purpose down to a T. It holds loads of Luca's toys and he absolutely loves playing with his new busy board.
Thank you for watching. If any of you give this project a go, we'd love to see someone else's take on it. If you enjoyed this one, it'd be great if you could like and subscribe to our channel. It would mean a lot. Until next time, guys.
Oh my god. Oh, fuck.
Are you alright?
That actually really hurt.